Zimbabwean former President Robert Mugabe was finally laid to rest in Kutama in the Zvimba district of Zimbabwe today. The burial service was a low-key event with only those close to the former veteran leader and the members of the community attending the service. Zimbabwe's government had earlier indicated the former president would be buried at the Heroes Acre in Harare, where a shrine would be built. But his body was transported to Kutama in Zvimba by the military on Thursday. Spokesperson for the family, Leo Mugabe, says it was Mugabe's wish to be buried in Zvimba, and the family was fulfilling his wish. Former President Mugabe died in Singapore a few weeks ago at the age of 95. His death comes after 2 years, almost 2 years actually, after he was forced out of power after his more than 3 decades rule. We go to Zvimba in Zimbabwe now, where the country's former president was buried. Our correspondent Ephert Musekiwa now joins us. Ephert, good evening and welcome to News at 9. Let's get straight to the events that took place where you are. Give us a brief report on the main reason why a man of President Robert Mugabe's stature is not buried at the Heroes Acre as expected.
Well, good evening. According to the family representatives who spoke this afternoon during the burial ceremony, they indicated that it was his last request that he be not buried at the Heroes Acre, that he be buried there in Kutama where they buried him today, and that they were just fulfilling the former president's last wishes, which he had told his family, which he had told those that were close to him, and that they were happy that the government had actually respected the wishes of former President Robert Mugabe. One speaker did indicate that Mugabe felt aggrieved right towards the end of his life, and that was one of the reasons he said he had actually opted or preferred that he be buried in his rural home, where his people that always stood with him, his people that always were with him even in tough times are found, and that's why he decided to be buried there at his rural home.
And all the headlines I've read about the funeral today say it was indeed a low-key funeral. You were there. Tell us, what was the most glaring thing that was missing at a funeral of a former president?
Well, indeed, it was a low-key. But again, the family said that that was his wish, that the ceremony or the burial process be a private affair where only those that were very, very close to him would be in attendance. There were no government officials. I think there was only a single senior government official who was present. There were no dignitaries to speak of. It was just the family and those that were close to him. I think the gathering had less than or it was an average of about 200 people that were there at the Mugabe homestead for the burial. Just his family, his close relatives, and really no one. I think the only high-ranking official who was there was the minister, the state minister for the province of Mashonaland West, and she was the only government official who was there. Politicians, I think we only saw about 2 opposition politicians that were also in attendance. One of them was Professor Lafmo Maduku, who was always a critic of former President Robert Mugabe. Then another staunch supporter of Robert Mugabe, who now is in the opposition party called the National Patriotic Front, who won a seat in Kwekwe, was also present. And apart from those 2, there were no other high-ranking political figures present at the burial.
And now, Ephert, we understand that a shrine was under construction at the Heroes Acre. Any official word from government on how they feel that the family went this route?
Well, the government initially, remember when they arrived from Singapore, President Emmerson Mnangagwa did indicate that they will respect the wishes of the family. And on Thursday, when the family announced that they now wanted to bury him at his rural home, the government quickly responded and said, we respect those wishes and we will support you in anything that you need to do. And that's the only communication that we've received from the government. But earlier on, when I traveled to Kutama, before I traveled to Kutama, I passed through just close by to just check if there was they had stopped construction work at the Heroes Acre. But I did notice that the construction work was still it was still underway. They were still constructing there at the Heroes Acre. So we do not know what they are going to do with the mausoleum that they were constructing, what will become of it, or what significance it will hold, or whether they will at the end of the day stop the construction, or they haven't communicated to us as to what they will do with the work that they had begun at the Heroes Acre.
Interesting developing story there. Ephert Musekiwa, SABC correspondent in Zvimba, where President Robert Mugabe was buried this afternoon. Now we've got more news for you here on News at 9.